The last chapter we got a really bit of information that I thought was super cool out of the blue. Well, not really, but kind of. The whole bit of the abyss of magic being brought up, at Faris specifically calling the abyss of black magic, which it makes me wonder, is it the same thing, or is it something that is the equivalent to the abyss of magic but with black magic? And maybe we'll figure out what it is in explanation. Maybe it isn't a exact location, and it's something like a state of being that you achieve with black magic, and then so there's one for magic, and then so there's one for black magic. I don't know, would there be one for curses and spirit arts? I don't know. It's a weird thing. We'll have to wait a little bit to figure out the explanation. And last chapter though, we had a lot of that just general kind of exposition for lore. This one we had more exposition for combat. We did not see Gaia or Gate, which is really interesting because Gate, I have like the idea that he is more powerful than he seems. He gives off the personality, or not the personality, but the presence of that type of character. Has the least crazy design, other than like he has like demonic like ears and like the lines on his face and horns. He doesn't really look that crazy, whereas everyone else like has way more demonic outward features, or in personality. And we didn't see him in the chapter, which makes me think maybe he is more important. And then we didn't see Guy, which was really interesting about that one. I don't really know how his fight's gonna go, because some of them I don't really see how there's victory like for as a path for the some of the members. Like when it comes to Cobra, I feel like Cobra has the potential to be able to beat Blade. Now we see he's actually kind of like a counter. I saw like the whole thing, I figured it was gonna be a snake, aka poison, but it's more of like the idea of silent, and I thought that was really cool. At least for an aspect of his magic, we didn't get the full like every single detail of all their abilities, but like the first thing we got with him is like his magic is black slashing magic, and it does, at least for the first ability, the slashes are silent, so whenever he uses the sword it doesn't produce any sound, which is really cool. And for somebody, I imagine like Cobra, that's just way worse. As you climb like the swordsman skill ladder, because he is primarily a swordsman, I imagine it's generally good. And same thing with like levels of melee combat, so obviously like anyone like a Dragon Slayer would be within that area, but Cobra, it like obviously is like hard countered in a good area of his abilities, which is really interesting because like we had a whole little story before this arc where he ran into Warren, and the whole thing was obviously Cobra is a far more powerful wizard, but Warren is better in specifically telepathy than Cobra, so he was able to read his mind and he wasn't able to keep Cobra out of his. It was just a funny situation, but it showed an area of Cobra's magic that he hadn't fully mastered yet, but he had used normally. And it makes me wonder if this is kind of like it was like a foreshadowing into that, and here we see it in like before in a funny sense, but here in a combat sense, where he, as Blade says, he relies too much on sound when in fights, which is again something really cool to him, because he is a dragon slayer, again, where their senses are huge aspects of their general fighting prowess, because they have enhanced dragon senses. But Cobra, because of his sound magic and his hearing magic, he relies heavily on his sense of hearing, more so than a normal dragon slayer. So someone like Blade is a really bad opponent for him. So I really like this whole setup for him, because that gives him a cool enemy. I really want to know which ones of them are going to get defeated here. Right now, I think each of them have the potential, except for Zero, to get defeated here, because maybe Zero will be the only one defeated here and some will go by, who knows. Just because I feel like Zero should be somebody that, you know, brought back. We need to see more of him before he's just defeated, unless the whole thing is he's just supposed to be back for a big fight and the other ones are supposed to get away, and maybe she's like, oh, don't worry, I have a couple other flesh Aetherius that I was working on, and maybe we see like Zancro and Hades that we bring back. What'd be really cool is we see a couple others. She just does the Battle of Alliance Guildmaster Gauntlet and somehow brings back Mard gear. But other than that, I'm very curious as to the process as to where we're going to be going with the next couple steps, because it didn't seem like it was possible for the Sechs to win at the first, going into this chapter. Things were a bit rocky before Natsu shows up near the end. It just doesn't seem like really any of them have the chance. Cobra was the only one that I would give somewhat of a edge to, because he's a Dragon Slayer. I feel like he's like somewhere around like a Godjill situation where he hasn't really been in a crazy combat scenario, and he hasn't had a reason to really push himself, and because of that he only has this general natural training time when he wants to grow in strength. And it seems like he's been hanging out a lot around Kinana for a while, and I don't imagine that he has been running into opponents that have been pointing out problems in his strategy. Because even back when Urza fought him, it was really like the hammer that was able to set up and defeat him, and a distraction. So it's not like he ran into as many problems with the sound magic, whereas here he's running into a direct problem, and further showing up as that chapter we had before, which makes you wonder if Ichiya is going to be relevant soon. I would hope so, but hopefully we'll see a little bit of a follow-up the next few chapters. With Bird, I'm not too surprised that he's not damaged like right in the opening of the chapter from Racer's attacks. Because he seems fine with dealing with Racer, and Racer only really has so much that he can do with his magic, and now he's like using his ability. He like has this whole black sky magic, and I swear I already said this guy just seems like a Wendy opponent, and now it's like Wendy, Sky Dragon Slayer, this guy black sky magic. Come on, like this is a Wendy opponent right in here. I don't really see Racer winning. Racer is like Hot Eye because Angel has more, I would imagine, than we could generally know, just because her magic, she kept shifting from different magics. But I would assume that she would stick to a similar type of magic, similar to, summoning in a way, shape, or form. We saw when she was in the Starry Sky arc, when the Rastion Sechs came back, and she had the whole coin summoning magic, and then she had the angels that she was using before. It's just something that she's kind of consistently done, so I would assume she would have somewhat similar, and it doesn't look like it's gonna work on Damon. Damon's looks actually pretty cool. She just has like a Wendy opponent to me though. Because with Bird, all we really saw is when he uses his magic, he just makes the whole area completely blinding and you can't see anything. I would assume there's going to be more to that. This is my guess. It's just going to be the opening effects. If this is all they have, I feel like they're going to get washed pretty quick, and it's just going to be, oh, these guys are just more powerful than the Sechs, and their just general abilities are more powerful. But I don't think so. I would imagine if these guys are all, buffed up by the abyss of black magic, they're gonna have more than just a first off status effect, and then they're Bird's gonna melee attack you down. I don't think so. I feel like that there's got to be at least a couple of effects going on that kind of work. This is just got to be the first layer. Racer though, I just don't really see where he specifically out of all of them is gonna do with, because when you look at all of them, Hot Eye has, like, say he does some crazy super mud softening thing, and he makes a giant, like, he's like, I'm gonna do 100 miles down, and he smashes him down into the ground, and he just goes straight, and then he unsoftens it, so he does it, like, encases him 100 miles below like the straight surface, and he does something crazy like that. And unless like he Ethereus forms and breaks out and does something crazy, then Gaia does something wild. I just don't see anything for Bird versus Racer where Racer can win, unless Racer's like megas his magic where he just like slows him down, where it's like he's fighting the Flash, but he's just like, oh no, I super slowed you, I've taken away all your speed. So yeah, pretty much fighting the Flash. Unless something like that, I don't really know. I don't see that really happening, because at that point I just don't really see what I don't really see who like that many people that'd be able to beat Racer at that point, unless you just straight, you know, oh your hacks doesn't work on me, and then you just body him, which I think would be kind of boring. Whereas with Midnight, if Midnight did something really cool with Earth magic, maybe he did something. He somehow sends you to the moon, and you have to go deal with Celine, and Celine's hanging out up there, and she just one shots you. I don't know, something like that. Angel could have some weird summoning. Like, it doesn't look good for most of them. I would really say the only one that I would have any stake in winning out of the Sechs was Cobra. But Cobra right now is not only getting pressed, but he's getting countered really badly by this guy, and he's already got his dragon scales out, and second gen Dragon Force is way weaker than the others. Cobra is, I would assume Cobra would have some new abilities or techniques going into this fight, maybe something to pull out that we haven't seen, but I don't imagine that he has anything too crazy. It wouldn't surprise me if he learned another magic and not advance his dragon slaying magic as much, but I feel like he probably just generally would want to progress that because it's his primary thing. And his hearing, or maybe that's his thing, is he's focused almost entirely on his dragon slaying magic, and then outside of that, he hasn't done anything, and he's slacked on his hearing and sound magic, and that's why somebody way weaker than him like Warren was able to get through, whereas Warren is just a master in this specific area. The power gap wasn't able to really do it in time, do it in this scenario. I don't know, but it's like, really, when you look at all of them, it's looking bad, but Bird is like the only one I can just, he conveniently got the only guy that I just don't see winning the fight for the only member of them that I just saw as the weakest. But Bird is doing pretty good, and Bird is the one that's really been opening. Like, he ended the chapter, he opened this one, he's the one that started using his black magic. He actually looked really cool in the panel when he uses it, when it's just this big shadow bird, and then he just goes in for, I guess, melee attacks for right now, but hopefully we get some more stuff. And then Damon pulls out a card, and then like she does like 6 shields, like acid rules, whatever it's called, and just does an acid attack. And what's funny is Lucy was originally supposed to be using card magic, I believe. I think it was card magic. It was either that or coin magic, and then it got switched over. But then cards, though, have played into a lot of just general stuff. Kana is one. Ooh, Kana, like, the thing is, like, a Kana opponent would be really cool, but I feel like this is a Lucy opponent. If Kana comes in and does this, I would be blown away just by the fact that Kana would get something, some form of 1v1. But like, otherwise I feel like it's a Lucy one. Like, Lucy's probably got like the 98% chance. Otherwise, here comes in Kana for her rare bow in. I personally, this is my hopes. Let me just really quick, because as my fingers would be crossed, is most of these guys, I don't want to be beaten by the relative main cast of any of the members of the Sechs. If some of them are defeated, I need them. Oh, alarm going off, my bad. If some of them are defeated within this recent, well, not recent, soon to be span, I want them, because they are Aetherius, to be shown as expendable and swiftly replaced with new members of Aetherius, of Faris's crew. So other than that, I would like a lot of them really to continue onward and to be opponents for later people. Like I said, someone like Gate, I don't want him to lose to Merity, to be honest. I would like him to go on, like I've been hoping, and fight Gray. And then, but I mean this for the fact, the Fire and the Flames people, as we've seen with Urza and Wed, going over there. Natsu has more of an Ignia, but he's also got Brian as like a lower end person, and I'm hoping Brian comes back and he's further dragonized, and he's further progressed in his dragon form, and he fights Natsu again. I'm really hoping he's just a reoccurring character like that, but he's more powerful and he's more of a challenge, because it would be a really good bar to show as the power progression goes, to see each status change, or like each status progression. Like, if where he was at before, he's 25% of the way, the next time we see him like 50 to 70%, and then Natsu has like a much harder fight, but he defeats him, and then he comes back at 100% later on in the arc, and Natsu has like a full-on, like, he needs to go all-out fight, defeats him, and that's where he's at a point where he is at the store where he's pushing and progressing, and then he has to go. Or it's one of the ones where he comes back and he's more powerful, but Natsu goes through like some form of training or like a couple month time skip, and he's able to just to fodder that dude, and it's just to show, oh yeah, at his full power he's able just to now still defeat this guy, but at a much lower level of difficulty. I don't know, but I want the members of Fire and Flames to be more for them, because we have Lekka for Gray, but I think Gray should get a lot of the members of, not a lot of the members, but at least one of the members of the Erasion Sechs, because I would like a lot of them to be more members for characters outside of the main cast. Like, I would want, say, Mira Jane to get somebody, like, say Mira Jane gets I'm trying to think who would be cool for Mira Jane. Maybe Mira Jane otherwise gets Blade. Maybe Mira Jane teams up with Cobra or something. That'd be kind of cool. I think that'd be kind of cool, where you have, like, she shows up and they 2v1, and it becomes more of like, hey, Kinana is really cool with me, I gotta come help you out, and it's like a guild thing, and they're trying to recruit Cobra, but Cobra, I'm trying to think how it'd be. Like, Cobra loses, Mira Jane comes back, she defeats Blade, but like maybe Blade gets away, and then Blade gets stronger, and then Cobra has like a rematch, but he fights a stronger one. I don't know, but something like that along the lines. It's gonna depend. I'm trying to think. Otherwise, like, maybe Mira Jane comes back and fights a different Aetherius. Because she's one of the ones, I gotta say, like, I feel like has to have a fight against one of these, you know, any form of spawn of Faris. I think Mira Jane has to get in here, because I feel like we really need a good full Mira Jane fight, just on the fact that there's some answers that in the verse of Fairy Tail I would really like to get some answers. Like, does she still have any of the Tartaros demon forms, because they were technically creations from Zeref, but Zeref died. Did they go away after he died, or because the fact Mira Jane absorbed their souls, now they're in possession of her, does her magic now take possession? Because I think that would make sense, and it would also, you know, further go on to the theory that once Lucy messed with the book and she had the whole part of Natsu's like essence like going into her body, I still go into my theory that the link, like the living magic link, went from Zeref to her, and it just explains so many things, and it would explain why Natsu's even still alive, but save it for another time. For now though, I would really like a lot of these fights to be saved for these different characters, like Cobra right now. Gray, I think, should get, like, logically, I think Gray should get another fight. Gray has the advantage against the, like, relatively any of the members of the Erasion Sechs, whereas Lekka has an advantage on him. And I think it'd be really cool for him to go through one of them and then go to Lekka as a later thing. So he has two fights going into this, through the rest of this arc. And Lekka is his bigger opponent, because I think it would make sense for Lekka to be a bigger guy. Because even if you take into account the boosts of, say, like, further progression of black magic, and, you know, further, like, the Aetherius form, dragonization for Lekka, at the end of the day, Lekka is gonna be a dragon, so it's like he's gonna be more powerful, and not only that, Gray is going to have a counter on Lekka, or sorry, not Lekka, on any of the Erasion Sechs that he's not going to have on Lekka. Whereas Lekka is going to have an elemental advantage, but it's just going to kind of generally depend. Because we know that, like, fire and ice is, like, really potency dependent. We know that because Silver learned Ice Devil Slaying specifically for E&D, so we know how ice goes into play with fire. But obviously, naturally with fire can just kind of melt ice, but if ice is cold enough, it just kind of beats fire. It really just depends, and I think it makes sense for how they're kind of going to be able to kind of get set up. But Lekka, just generally, I would assume, as a dragon and already having fire specific magic, he is going to go into this as a very much more difficult fight than any of the Erasion Sechs would give to Gray, just naturally. But with someone like Mira Jane, Mira Jane would have a degree of, I feel like with Mira Jane it'd be more like a neutral spot, whereas with Gray he has like a straight hard counter. And those are fights that I think they would just need, because then obviously Mira Jane could go in, and then after the fights Mira Jane can just go around sweeping up taking souls, and she's just like, listen, I'm ready, I need to be prepared. The creator said that there might be a next generation. He hasn't fully decided 100%. I'm pretty sure he actually said 100% recently in an interview, but we could get it, and I need to be ready for it because I'm not doing this sideline shit. Like she saw my memes and my comments about her getting bodied by Scullion for so long, and she's like, I'm tired of this shit. He's right, I need to get these souls and I need to do something. Lucy's got that Stardust mix shit. Let me kind of fuse this and do some crazy nightmare fuel demon form that's also really hot. Like that would be like my, hopefully Mara Jane breaks the fourth wall and she takes my advice and she just sets herself up into the arc and is like, listen, even if I get my ass kicked, I'll be ready for when healing is here and I can go and pick up some souls. I need to be in this. Because essentially Gray shows up and she just like, imagine the idea of Mara Jane. She shows up at the fight, she's in here, she just, for whatever reason, she shows up. Like I said, Kinana feels worried. She's like, oh no, Eric's in trouble, I just know it. Mira Jane's like, I'll go help him. She goes and she flies over, not flies over, I guess they're over continent away. Something happens, there's a portal of some kind, maybe Celine, what would we have to have? Like, we'd have to have Toka show up or something. We would have to have something like that happen. I'm trying to think of like the easiest way to get somebody just to teleport over. Some way, shape, or form that she's like, oh, I have this card. Kana gave it to me, and it lets me have an automatic teleport over to him here. And Mira Jane's like, fuck yeah, let's go. She teleports over. Mira Jane's in the fight. She's having the most dangerous fight she's had recently. She's like, oh shit, I'm getting pressed. These are demons. I can do this. Demon against demon. This is a battle that I need. And then all of a sudden, like, Natsu shows up to fight Zero, and she's like, sweet, we got this. Natsu's gonna have that fight, and then I'm gonna have some backup. And then Gray pops up, and then Gray makes a comment about being a demon sir, and she's like, this is gonna be easy now. Now just to be time to loot. And she just is ready just to collect. I'm hoping that would be the case. I feel like that would be max just Mira Jane peak comedy. But also it would be so amazing because on top of that, Mira Jane would have the full excuse to do something later. Even if she got like one of these, I feel like it would be really, really good. Because when you look at her souls, assuming that she has all the ones that she got from Tartaros still, because again, we don't know in theory whether she lost them once Seraph died. We haven't seen her use any of the forms since then, but assuming she has them, really she got like some good, like she got Sayla, and then otherwise she got Alegria, but that's good, but it's not like if she walked up there and pulled out Bloodman or Larcade, I'd say, okay, Mara Jane, now you're ready to actually just be cracked. If she did that, I would be completely just ready to be like, okay, Mara Jane stocks are fully back on the table. Because I feel like the problem with Mira Jane is that just her magic and the way that takeover magic works, it's just dependent on what is in the world that you can defeat and collect, but otherwise what can you self-advance. And we haven't seen anything kind of like how Lucy does Stardust Mix, or Urza is doing outside magic enchanted into her weapons, to where they're changing the general game of how you would look at their magic and how their magic is, and essentially creating new pathways for it. You don't really have that with takeover magic. It just seems to be like takeover magic to me, it feels almost like kind of like devil fruits, but without the awakening, so there's not like an end game idea. That's like how it feels like to me. It feels like that, like a nerfed version. but it's so dependent. It's like the idea, it's like you could get something completely shit with a devil fruit, or you can get something crazy with takeover. You can get something like animal soul, which is still good in its area, but it's not god soul. It's like you could have a devil fruit that just gives you, my power is to turn my hands into nipples or something stupid, something ridiculous. But then it's like, oh yeah, my power is to turn into a I don't know, my power is to turn into a living cloud of AIDS, and I'm gonna just fly, like I give you cancer, like I come at you and I give you a horrible like stage 4 terminal kidney status. Like it gives you just a complete and total killing disease. It's just something crazy. It's like, yeah, you could have something like that, because then it's like you look at what Jenny has, like like machine soul, which seems good, but as far as we know it would cap at wall, which is really good, but does she have wall, or is she just getting random machines out there, or what? Or Mira Jane's got demons. Demons can just obviously scale, but as far as we've ever seen, the strongest by far demons are all of the artificial ones. None of the natural demons within the verse have been really crazy. So Mira Jane, unless Mira Jane, like I said, picked up some people at the end of Alvarez that we don't know about, or invented something, like if she pulls out Mira Jane Marred Gear or something, which I don't think she could because the book was destroyed. So it's something like now, like if Mira Jane shows up and she has her base set now, or she even doesn't have the Tardros souls and she has the souls that she had before Tardros, like she would still have her sea tree and she would have Halphus, which I would actually really like to see the Halphus form. I think it'd be really cool to see it in the manga. But outside of that, it would be just amazing to have her around for the hopes that afterwards that she would be able to sweep up. But outside of that, I'm very invested in these fights because I really want to see each of these members and see what they're capable of. I'm very intrigued as to why we didn't see Gaia in this chapter, because Hot Eye, I don't really understand what he's going to do to win, because his magic doesn't have any like crazy dangers to it. He just messes with the ground and makes it softer, and it does like mud magic and stuff, and just it doesn't seem dangerous. It seems like he'd be really hard to fight if you were somebody just way weaker than him and inexperienced. But he's just definitely in my eyes always been the easiest of the Sechs in general to defeat. And even if you look at, say, like, oh well, at the time, say like during the first arc, you say like, oh well, he was able to defeat Unawakened Midnight. I think it'd be harder for the average person though to fight Midnight, because obviously Hot Eye is going to know generally what Midnight does, so it's a different fight for him versus the average person. And on top of that, Hot Eye is able to do things that are able to work around that going into the fight that other people wouldn't have. So I don't know, he's just in a bad zone. I don't really see any of them, like I said, other than Cobra, in like a spot that's really beneficial to them. Everybody else seems like they're really going to be pressured. Hot Eye not seeing is strange, but I would really like to see what exactly what exactly Merity is going to be doing with Gate. Gate, to me, he just seems cool. I'm really hoping he's a gray opponent. Like, he, out of all of them, is the one I really want to move forward, other than Zero. I'm hoping, though, because I talked mostly already, obviously, about them. Like, I'll get to Zero in a second. Just generally about the black slashing magic, because it seems like their magics are all going to be very straightforward. Because Damon says she has... what does she say exactly? Demonic black magic. I think she actually straightforward meant that, and I wonder what that means. And with the cards, I wonder if it means, like, does she have specific ways of using different demon abilities through the cards, or is it different ways of the magic? Because Acid Rule is actually something that is a reference in the verse, and we had as a reference earlier. One of the dudes, I forgot his name off the top of my head. Let me pull that thing up. He's one of the Hungry Wolf Knights. He has it on his back. Acid Rule is a reference to Rave Master, It's one of the dudes. He has it. Oh god, what is that guy's name? That guy I really. What's funny is I liked him, and I can't remember his name. Like I gotta look it up. Don't worry, I will have this. I will make sure this gets in the video because this is important. This is something that is. It's funny because like I remember the first guy. I don't remember this clown's name because Okama. That was the leader guy. That's funny. It's like two of them didn't get names, like the main dudes. Neppa, yeah, it's his name. They gave him like two goof names in the anime because these guys didn't have like anything important about them in the manga. Whereas like at least the one, I think it's pronounced Ausuke, but he was the funny one, so he got to have at least a little bit more spotlight. And then we got to see a little bit more of the nice designed ladies. But yeah, the dude. He's got like the nice whole thing obviously on his back with acid rule, but his power isn't called acid rule. So that's a really cool thing about this thing. Is like this is now a reference on his design, but in terms of his actual existence, he didn't put acid rule into the verse because he's got acid rule just straight on his jacket. But now we actually have it from this, so it's like a two-layered reference. It's a two-layered whole setup that Mishima's got in there. I'm personally a fan. I have to remember though. I'm looking up the guy's name. What is the guy's name? Requin. That's the dude's name. I always forget because that guy always pissed me off with his name because the other dudes they would have like animal names like leopard and stuff, and they would have like designs. Oh, it's designed similar to like her clothes are like a leopard. And then this guy though, he's got like this whole like alligator fit, and then Nope, Reckon. His name was like Requin. But yeah, he had an acid power like that called Acid Rule, and it was really cool. But now she's using it, but she's using in like a card. So I really want to see her magic in more so because I'm curious just to know like what exactly it's like. What does the card structure go into it? Is it like the card one when she's at 6 shields and uses acid rule, or is the next one, is it more like an attack one acid rule, or is acid rule this one and this other one is going to be a different kind of reference? I'm very curious as to what exactly hers is going to be, because her magic just seems like it's going to be straight attack magic, and everyone else is really split. I'm surprised Natsu was able to get over here so fast, mainly because I figured he was going to be stuck over there for a little bit. But I mean, like, it really just kind of speaks in how fast Happy is. Happy's always had like crazy travel speed, and he's able to get over here within the span of what probably has been like a couple minutes within like travel time, just within like the opening of these fights. I really like that when Blade uses his magic, like all the darkness around him, it's like just only around his feet has any void of the darkness. He just goes and there's no sound produced by his swords. I'm curious though, when he goes for a slash and he attacks, like when he goes and he just destroys one of Cobra's abilities, or when he goes and destroys one of Cobra's techniques, he gets like a slash on his shoulder, and I'm wondering if the attack was one of those things where it's like he hit him and he wasn't just able to notice, or is it this a further effect of his ability? Like he's able to, I don't know, swing without being seen while he's swinging without being heard. And it's like a combination of what Jacob had, but combined into swordsmanship. I don't know. I'm trying to think of just like a really kind of like cool combination of things that like stacked on top of each other would be really cool. Because if he's not going to be a Cobra opponent, he's got to be an Urza opponent. But like, why then have Cobra show up and then have him immediately be like a Cobra hard counter? Like other than Cobra getting set up, but I feel like Cobra deserves something, because he deserves at least a fight if he's going to join the guild. Like he needs something to kind of like get him set up to be in it. Midnight though, I did not see Midnight really having a chance, because one thing that was really interesting when you see them, he's got just 1 zeros, just has this really cool just darkness radiating from him. He looks really badass. And Midnight goes and just uses Spiral Pain, which is like his standard straightforward attack. We've seen him use a bunch. And at first it looks like Zero just stands there and tanks it, but it looks like it goes on him and he moves like the reflection, like he's just touching this hand and sliding it away, because Midnight isn't doing something like he's, I don't know, like he's using magic and forming like a blade, or forming like magic blades, or like, you know, he's not doing anything here like twisting the ground or twisting like the wall, or he's just literally just doing a reflection of like essentially he's using his magic to go reflect and twist and damage the being. He's like trying to twist the magic around them, and Zero is just sliding it off him. He's just like, yeah, whatever, this isn't bothering him whatsoever. And then he uses Dark Rondo, which is interesting because he's like, he does a hand sign with one hand, and then his other hand is just kind of spraying out. It looks really cool. It's just very strange to see him do it without a staff. I really like just visually how it looks, because it just looks like it's pouring out of his body, and he's just doing this cool hand sign, doing like a chant to have it come around. There's also a really interesting comment from Midnight, when Midnight is saying like he's even more powerful than when he first became Zero, which to me has me very intrigued. One, Zero's power level has always been very downplayed. There's a way you have to look at it in terms of like the story, because one, he's a Balam Alliance guild master, but the thing is, he's the first one taken down, and really in the grand scheme of things, he's obviously the weakest out of the three. But when you really look at where he is in the verse, he's actually really powerful, because one, Natsu, when he fought Zero, he was at a higher stage of Dragon Force than when he fought Jalal. Jalal was a wizard saint, and we don't know exactly where he ranked, but we know Jura was the weakest out of the wizard saints. So Jalal at least had to, I would imagine, be, you know, somewhere probably like maybe 7, 8, 9, because Makarov, I assume, was 5 before everything going into Sirius Island. That's just an assumption. We've never had like a full fleshed out set of the ranks, but I would imagine, just based off the way that they taught, like the way that Jura was talked about, once Jura was ranked 5 out of 10, 5th. I don't know why I'm not saying 5th. That it seemed like it was like, oh, he superseded Makarov and he's now 5th. That's at least how the dialogue seemed to me. So when you look at that, I would assume Jalal at the time is like, you know, my guess 7, 8, 9, somewhere around there, maybe 7 or 8, just to kind of give him like a good spot. Maybe he was like 6, who knows. I feel like 7th or 8th, like 7th is like a good just general guess. I feel like you can go just give him the good 7 number, but otherwise it's like Natsu with Dragon Force completely stomped this again in idea, maybe 7th or 8th ranked wizard saint, and Zero was beating a stronger version and only lost at the very end when Natsu was able to push his limits, just kind of break past for that last like little blaze of energy, and it was able to defeat him. So it's like, when you look at that, you're able to really see where Zero was kind of at. Zero was obviously a lot stronger, so it's like where he was like a, probably, if I had to guess, if you had Wizard Saints, he was probably somebody that would be like a full fight for Makarov and be like 5th or something like that, because obviously Hades beat Makarov, and I would definitely say Margear would have beaten Makarov without much problem. But it's obviously hard when you kind of get to like God Serena, and then everybody between those points, it's hard to really sit. But, you know, Wolfheim, Hyperion, they're just really hard to really sit, to kind of look at, and then Warrior's more of a support wizard. But Zero now is much stronger. He's obviously, I would probably guess, upper Spriggan level at this stage. And Midnight, I just don't really see having a chance, because unlike Cobra and Blade, Cobra has the counter problem, but Midnight was taught by Brain. I imagine everything that Brain knows, Zero knows, but it's just a way worse spot for him. And with him, as I was saying, I completely lost my train of thought, but coming back to it. with him, he mentions like when he first became Zero, which makes me wonder if Zero is a personality caused by delving into black magic.
But overall, I think that Midnight is pretty much fine because Natsu's there. I'm hoping that Natsu and Midnight don't have a decisive battle where either like Natsu just straight out beats Zero or Zero ends up beating Natsu. I'm hoping they have kind of like a clash and it's just you know, they get interrupted and stuff is just going on that they have to kind of part ways. Is with the Sechs right now, each member, it's hard to say just their long running existence, but obviously right now we just have, you know, the short running existence they've had in the story, except for Zero. So we're just gonna have to wait to see how things progress on that matter. I would imagine though, like I said, that the Midnight is fine from any potential dangers. The other members, you know, still up there, we'll see. I don't really see any of them having any really good like things to kind of pull out other than just like, hey, straight like full out new abilities that have never been shown before in the series. And except for Cobra's the only one that had a little bit of foreshadowing earlier with the whole bit where he was getting clowned on by someone way weaker, just better with telepathy. So we'll see how that all goes down. But I feel like with most people though, and myself included, I really want to see what's going on with Faris and Ignia. Obviously what's going on with Wed and what's going on with Faris. It also, like, obviously with Wendy, Celine, that one's been really interesting, but I really want to know what's going to happen with Gray and Viernes, just because that one is so weird, and Gray's not a Dragon Slayer, so what exactly is his plan, and what exactly is going to be the interaction there? That one is going to be, in my opinion, one of the largest bounties of just general informations and new stuff, too, because we didn't really get relatively anything, like, in terms of personality for Viernes, so it'd just be really nice to see that expansion of just that area of character we didn't get too much of once we were in his arc, because obviously following his arc was this arc and he was going to be getting a lot of stuff here anyway. So it was a solid chapter. It was like the last one had a lot of good opening fight stuff, and then it had some, I would say, vital information for like the whole verse and ongoing events. And then this one had a little bit of a display of those, seeing a little bit of their magics. We didn't really see anything really too much in depth other than from Blade and Bird. Bird's was cool. I think Blade's is obviously way cooler, and whatever cool other sword techniques he's going to be pulling out is going to be neat, as well as what other cards Damon's going to have. I really want to see what exactly the expanse of hers is, and is it just like acid attacks? Is it just different kinds? Like, what exactly is she going to be doing? So other than that, comment below, tell me your thoughts about this chapter. Rambled on a little bit just because I thought there's some interesting scenarios set up, and I think that's one of the most intriguing things going on right now with all the kind of scattered out fights and stuff, because some of them have people they're looking for specifically, and then it's like, who would be like coolest for fighting, you know, character X, Y, or Z, and you know, out of the roster of people that can come in. But you know, a good chapter. I actually really liked it. It wasn't what I was on my massive wish list. I was really hoping to see, you know, either a dragonized other version of probably like significantly, I would say, Lekka out of the group, or like Ignia Fair's fight. It was more so just giving, like I said, a follow-up of the last chapter, which is just really nice. It is really good in of itself, and then Natsu showing up over with Zero. I'm very intrigued to see how Zero responds to that in the following chapter, and to get to understand where the tone of their fight is going to be, and the pace is Natsu going to be heavily stronger than Zero. Is Zero going to be like even? Is the Aetherius aspects of him going to make it so he can sustain over base Natsu, and he is just going to be trying to like bait out the higher forms for some reason? I don't know. There's a lot of potential there. We just have to give it a, you know, I would assume at least 2 weeks, and maybe in 2 weeks we'll get the next chapter starting with leaving off with an angry Zero remembering Natsu's name and Fairy Tail's name. So good stuff. Comment below, tell me your thoughts about this chapter and everything and whatnot, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everyone's already checked out my content, my videos, subscribed. Until next time, bye.